Have you ever felt like you were your own worst enemy? That no matter how much you grow, something inside keeps pulling you backward. You finally find someone who sees you and then you disappear. You promise you'll do better next time, and then you don't. It's easy to think you're broken, unworthy, doomed to repeat the same cycle. But what if I told you this isn't dysfunction, it's a message? A hidden part of you trying to be heard. If that part had a voice, what would it say somewhere deep inside? There's a door you closed a long time ago, and behind it, something still waits, not to destroy you but to protect you, even now. There's a reason you keep running. And a reason you're here. Thank you for staying with me this far, and if any of this sounds familiar, I hope you'll stay just a little longer. Michael had a good life. Or so it seemed. A stable job in downtown Seattle. A loft apartment with exposed brick and soft jazz playing at night. Colleagues admired his work ethic. Friends called him put together. And yet, he kept losing things, not material things, people, opportunities, moments that should have mattered but slipped through his fingers. It was like he couldn't hold on to happiness for more than a few breaths. He'd get close to someone, then disappear. He'd land the promotion, then sabotage the project. He'd promise to change and then come home drunk on disappointment. The pattern was so consistent it became a rhythm, and that rhythm started to feel like identity. I ruin good things, he once whispered to himself in the mirror. And the mirror didn't argue. There was no tragic event, no single trauma to explain it all, just a slow erosion of joy. A quiet war he didn't know he was fighting, until one day at a dinner party, he met someone. Her name was Anna. She was kind, present, and completely unprepared for how quickly Michael would vanish after their third date. He never returned her texts. He never explained, just vanished. And lying awake at 2:37 a.m. the next night, he asked himself, why? Why do I keep doing this? Why can't I let myself be happy? Why does it feel safer to run than to stay? That question sat with him for weeks, like a pebble in his shoe. Every step hurt. But what he didn't know then was that pain has a purpose. And sometimes the thing chasing you is something inside asking to be found. The first time Michael ever felt like a burden, he was 6. It was a rainy Thursday, the kind that painted the windows with soft gray streaks. He was coloring dinosaurs in the kitchen. His mother was on the phone in the other room, her voice rising, sharp. Then, Michael, not now, please, just be quiet. He didn't say anything, just stared at the green crayon in his hand and the half-finished stegosaurus. That moment didn't seem like much, but something changed. From then on, he stopped asking questions, stopped dancing in the hallway, stopped laughing too loud. He learned to shrink, to smile on cue, to make others comfortable by disappearing. And the thing is, everyone praised him for it. What a quiet boy, so mature for his age. He never causes trouble. They didn't know he was already in trouble, not the kind with consequences, the kind that goes unnoticed, the kind that becomes permanent. In school, he became reliable. In college, disciplined. In work, professional. But no one ever asked, what happened to the boy who used to love drawing dinosaurs? That boy didn't disappear. He went underground, turned into a shadow, watching, waiting, trying not to ruin anything ever again. But the more Michael tried to be perfect, the more he felt like he was failing. He wasn't failing, he was splitting. And somewhere inside, that 6-year-old still waited for someone to say, you're not too much. Have you ever had a memory like that, something small, but it never quite let go? If you've carried something invisible for years, something no one else saw but you still feel, tell me in the comments. Just say, I remember. You might be surprised how many of us are walking around, holding stories that never got to end. And for Michael, that ending would begin in the most unexpected place, a question asked by a stranger that cracked the silence wide open. Michael became a master of masks, At work he was sharp, crisp suits, polished shoes, a calendar always full. But behind it all, he was tired. Of pretending, of being the guy who always had it together, when really, he was barely holding on every time he got close to success. Something inside pulled him back. He'd overthink simple decisions, sabotage deadlines, start fights in relationships that were going well. People called it fear of commitment. He called it just who I am. But deep down, he knew it didn't feel like a choice. It felt automatic, like a reflex, a ghost hand reaching out and yanking the steering wheel. And the more he ignored it, the stronger it got. At night, he'd lay in bed staring at the ceiling, playing the same reel, moments he ruined, people he hurt, things he walked away from. He hated that version of himself. But hating it didn't change it. What he didn't realize was this: that part of him wasn't evil. It was hungry, hungry for safety, hungry for control, hungry to protect the child inside who once learned that being too much meant being unloved. So the shadow grew, fed by silence, by shame, by every smile he faked when he wanted to scream. It whispered lies that felt like truth. You don't deserve this. They'll leave anyway. Better to push them first. Have you ever heard that voice, not loud, but steady, like static beneath every joy? Michael didn't know he had a shadow. He thought he had flaws, character defects, but in truth, he had parts of himself he'd never met, never held, never listened to. And shadows, they don't disappear just because we ignore them. They wait until light finds them, or until they break something we can't afford to lose. That moment was coming for Michael. It would arrive in a room he almost didn't enter, with a question he never saw coming. The room smelled like lavender. Soft light filtered through a window lined with books, a single chair, a box of tissues, and a woman with kind eyes who said almost nothing at first. Michael didn't know why he was there. He'd booked the appointment late at night, out of frustration, desperation, hope, and now, sitting in silence, he almost regretted it. But then she asked, "What's the first time you felt like a burden?" He didn't answer, at least not with words. His throat tightened, his chest got hot, and in his mind that green crayon appeared again. He hadn't thought of that moment in 20 years, but now it roared back whole, and something cracked, something long frozen began to thaw. Because it wasn't just about that day in the kitchen. It was about every time since, every time he swallowed his feelings, every time he left first so no one else could, every time he succeeded and felt nothing. All roads led back to that one belief: I am too much. The therapist didn't fix him. She didn't even try. She just waited. And Michael, he began to speak, not perfectly, not clearly, but honestly. He talked about the ghost of his father's silence, about his mother's sadness like wallpaper in every room, about the noise in his head that never stopped. She listened like it mattered, like he mattered. And for the first time, he didn't feel broken, just fragmented. There's a difference. Broken means needs to be thrown away. Fragmented means needs to be gathered. And that day, Michael gathered one small piece. That moment didn't change everything, but it opened a door, a quiet invitation from his own soul to stop performing, to start remembering. And if you're here, still listening, maybe there's a part of you that's knocking too. If anything in this felt like it came from your own memories, leave a word below, any word, because naming a feeling is how healing begins. And for Michael, that name was about to take shape in a way he never imagined. Jung once wrote, "The shadow is not the enemy. It is a part of the self we fail to recognize." Michael read that line late one night, scrolling his phone in bed, still shaken from the memory the therapist had unearthed. And something about those words made sense, not intellectually, but in his bones. For years he thought his pain came from weakness. But what if it came from war? A war within, between the self he showed the world and the self he buried long ago. The shadow, Jung said, is not evil, it's instinct. It's every desire, fear, impulse, and wound we were told not to have. Michael began to see it everywhere, not just in himself but in others, the friend who always joked, but never cried, the colleague who worked 70-hour weeks to avoid going home, the woman who gave everything in love except her truth. And suddenly, Michael wasn't alone, he wasn't defective, he was divided. That shift changed everything, not overnight, but slowly, like winter softening into spring. He started tracking his patterns. The moment he felt panic when someone got close, the urge to ghost when things felt real. And he'd ask himself, what part of me feels unsafe right now? That question wasn't judgment, it was curiosity, a flashlight into the dark. And what he found there wasn't a monster, it was a boy, still scared, still waiting to be told, you're allowed to be here. The more he acknowledged the shadow, the less it fought him. Because shadows don't rebel to harm us, they rebel to be heard. When Michael stopped resisting, something strange happened. He started trusting, not blindly, but deeply. He began to sense that the parts of him he feared might be holding his greatest strength, courage, compassion, clarity, not in spite of the shadow, but because of it. And maybe that's what wholeness truly means, not a life without darkness, but a life where even the dark has a seat at the table. Have you ever tried to silence a part of yourself, only to realize it was trying to protect you all along? If you've had that moment, you're not alone. Leave a light emoji in the comments, candle, to honor the parts of us that waited in the dark, because the journey ahead would ask Michael to do something he had never done before, not analyze, not resist, but speak directly to the shadow itself. Michael sat at his kitchen table, a blank notebook in front of him, pen trembling between his fingers. He wasn't sure what he was about to do, only that his therapist had said, write a letter to the part of you you're most afraid of. So he began, slowly, awkwardly, honestly. Dear Rage. He wrote to the part of him that yelled in traffic, that snapped in arguments, that scared even him. He didn't justify, he didn't judge, he just let it speak. And Rage wrote back, I'm here because no one listened when you were calm. I protect you when you feel small. I show up so you won't get crushed again. Then came Shame, the part of him that cringed at compliments, that shrank under praise, that whispered, if they really knew you. Dear Shame, he wrote, I hate you and also, I think I need you to understand me. Shame replied, I'm not here to ruin you, I'm here to keep you humble so they won't hurt you again. And then, Fear. That letter took the longest, because fear wasn't loud, fear was quiet, always in the background, pulling levers Michael didn't know existed. Fear, he wrote, you make everything feel impossible. Why? Fear answered. Because last time you trusted joy, it left. Each letter was like exhaling air he didn't know he was holding, each response. Not fiction, but truth disguised as metaphor. He wasn't losing his mind, he was reconnecting with it. And the most surprising thing, these parts weren't cruel, they were loyal, fiercely, painfully, protectively loyal. They sabotaged not to punish, but to prevent pain, misguided guardians of a child who once learned that love meant danger. So when things got good, they stepped in to stop it before it could hurt. And for the first time, Michael didn't fight them. He listened, with tears, with trembles, with grace. And slowly, the letters changed from accusation to conversation, from why are you ruining my life to what are you trying to protect. And in that shift, Michael discovered something powerful. When we dialogue with the parts we hide, they don't destroy us, they reveal us, not the curated self, but the full self. Have you ever tried writing to your fear or your shame? Try it tonight. Even just a sentence. It might not fix everything, but it might open a door. And for Michael, that door would lead to the deepest part of him yet, a room locked for decades, holding the memory that would change everything. It started with a dream. Michael was walking down a long hallway, dimly lit, walls lined with doors, all closed except one. At the very end, a small wooden door, old, weathered, and slightly ajar. He approached it slowly, heart pounding, not from fear but from familiarity. He'd been here before, not in waking life, but somewhere deeper, a place memory and meaning intertwine. When he pushed the door open, he found a room empty, except for a child curled up in the corner, clutching a drawing of a dinosaur, green crayon, half finished. The boy didn't speak, he just looked up, eyes wide, tired, hopeful, and in that gaze Michael remembered everything. This was the part of him that stopped laughing, that decided it was safer to disappear, that traded joy for invisibility. He knelt, and for a long time he said nothing. Because what do you say to a part of yourself you abandoned for survival? Finally, he whispered, "Sorry." The boy blinked and nodded. No accusations, no demands, just a quiet permission to return. That dream stayed with Michael for days. It wasn't just imagery, it was instruction. He began visualizing that room when he felt triggered. When panic rose in his chest, when he wanted to run, he'd pause, close his eyes, and picture opening that door again, speaking gently to the boy inside, letting him know, "It's okay now. He's safe. He's not alone anymore." And with each visit, that boy started to change. He stood up, walked around, even began to smile. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic, it was quiet, soft, sacred. Because integration isn't loud, it's listening, it's loving the parts we were told to abandon. Michael wasn't healed, he was healing. And that difference was everything. Have you ever pictured a younger version of yourself? The one who first felt pain? Try it. Picture their face, their hands, their voice. And tell them one thing you wish they'd heard back then. That one sentence might become the foundation of your future, just like it did for Michael. Because the next time love knocked at his door, he didn't run, he opened it, and stayed. Anna texted again. Months had passed since they last spoke. "Hey, hope you're okay." Michael stared at the message, fingers hovering, mind racing. In the past, he would have ignored it, maybe responded with something vague, safe, emotionally distant. But this time, he didn't run, he typed slowly. "Hey, I've been doing some work on myself, would love to talk if you're open." She replied, "I'd like that." They met for coffee, same spot as their third date, but it felt different. Michael was different. He still felt the pulse of panic, still sensed the old urge to bolt. But now he knew what it was, not danger, not rejection, just his shadow, worried, remembering, trying to protect. So he didn't silence it, he sat with it, held it, and whispered inwardly, "It's okay, we're okay." And for the first time, the shadow stayed quiet. He told Anna the truth, about therapy, about the letters, about the little boy in the dream. She didn't flinch, didn't pity, she listened, the way the therapist once had. And when she reached for his hand across the table, he didn't pull away, he stayed. That night, lying beside her, he didn't feel like a fraud or a ticking time bomb or a burden. He felt present, whole, not yet, but grounded, open, available to love, not in perfection, but in presence. There were still moments when he recoiled from kindness, when he braced for abandonment. But now he could name it, talk to it, hold it, and each time he did, the fear got smaller, the shame got quieter, the love got louder. Because healing isn't about never being triggered, it's about knowing what to do when you are. And Michael, he was learning, not by force, not by erasing who he'd been, but by making room for all of him. Have you ever stayed when you wanted to flee, loved when it felt scary? If you have, even once, leave a orange heart in the comments. That's bravery. That's progress, that's you becoming whole. And for Michael, wholeness wasn't a finish line, it was a quiet return to the self he once buried and now was learning to welcome home. Michael used to believe healing meant becoming someone else, someone cleaner, calmer, unbothered, but real healing was messier than that. It wasn't a straight line, it looped. It spiraled, it brought back feelings he thought he'd buried for good. But now he met them differently, with presence, with breath, with less panic. There were still days the shadow knocked louder than love, still moments he wanted to vanish into old patterns. But instead of running, he paused, closed his eyes, and pictured the boy still in that room. Now with windows open, light spilling in, sometimes he'd sit beside him in silence. Other times they'd color dinosaurs again, finished this time. Wholeness, he realized, wasn't about becoming light. It was about holding the dark without letting it define you. The goal wasn't to be fearless, but to let fear come and not be ruled by it. To let grief rise and not drown in it. To let joy arrive and not push it away. Integration. That's what Jung called it, the sacred alchemy of making peace with the unseen. And now Michael saw the shadow not as a threat, but as a guide. Each time it whispered doubt, it was a chance to affirm truth. Each time it braced for loss, it was an invitation to practice presence. Each time it stirred, it was a reminder. I'm still here, I still need you. And Michael answered not with shame, but with softness. This wasn't self-help. It wasn't optimization. It wasn't perfection. It was remembering that every part of him, even the messy, scared, impulsive parts, belonged. That nothing inside needed to be exiled to earn love. That the most radical act of healing wasn't changing. It was welcoming. Have you ever had a moment like that, where you realized you don't have to fix everything to be worthy of peace? If that thought ever touched you, let it stay. Let it soften something inside, because Michael wasn't perfect now. He still got afraid, still felt lonely, still made mistakes. But now he didn't abandon himself when it happened. He stayed, and in that staying, he discovered the truth. You don't become whole by escaping the dark. You become whole by lighting a candle inside it and letting it flicker without fear, without shame, without running. There's a moment that comes quietly, not with fanfare, not with fireworks, just a breath, a stillness. A knowing. For Michael, it came on a Sunday morning, the city still asleep. The sun spilling gold onto his kitchen floor. He was making coffee. And suddenly, he realized he wasn't bracing for anything, not for rejection, not for failure, not for the next storm. He was just here, alive, ordinary, whole, and in that ordinariness there was something sacred. He remembered all the versions of himself who had fought so hard to earn rest, to earn peace, to earn permission, and now he gave it freely to himself, to the boy, to the shadow. He wrote one last letter, this time to all of them. Thank you, it said, for surviving, for trying, for protecting me the only way you knew how. You don't have to fight anymore, you can rest, we made it. And when he signed it, he didn't use his name, he just wrote, ready to stop running. Not because he had no more fear, but because he finally knew he could walk with it, side by side, with love. If you've stayed through this journey, thank you. Maybe there's a part of you, too, that's tired of running, tired of pretending, tired of hurting yourself before others can. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to come home, not to a perfect life, but to a whole self. If this spoke to something inside you, whisper it back in the comments, in your heart. To your own shadow, ready to stop running. Because you're not alone, you were never alone, and this is just the beginning.